Hello, Local 304. Time for it's turned into every 2 week videos now. We've just got so much going on, so let's just jump right into it. Our DS&O contract has been approved by both the members and the board. Kind of unique, we did a 2-year agreement there. Normally those are 1-year agreements, so we did a $1.25 an hour bump on the journeyman classifications, and then 75-cent bump on the other classifications, and then year 2 of the agreement, 3% bump for everybody, along with some other minor changes. I say minor. One of them that is kind of envious is they bumped their dependent care leave up now to 80 hours, so that's a good one as far compared to the rest of our agreements. Also, last week, Gene and I, along with the members of Sunflower, were in negotiations down in Hays, Kansas, and we did reach a 3-year agreement down there. It's out for a vote currently. Probably the 2 biggest things there, and you don't hear this very often, we were able to increase our defined pension benefit to a multiplier 2.0. So I'm pretty proud of that, because at the same time most contracts were sitting at the table trying to maintain our benefits. Us being able to improve it there is pretty good. And then 2% wage increases for each year of that agreement. Four Rivers, which is the merger of Lion Coffee and Radiant, those negotiations are still going on. Gator, Brad Miller is in the middle of that one, so bringing 2 contracts together is pretty unique. And then he did his Flint Hills negotiations. The members voted down the TA, so they're going back to the table next week, I believe, to talk about the reasons why that one went down. Also, the line clearance agreement, I think I told you, did pass, and so that's in the signature phase now. Just sent that off to the contractors with all the changes done, so we can get that signed and get it off to the IO. And the construction agreement was sent to the International today, so we've got all the signatures and then get the IO's approval so that we can get those books printed up. Along with Westar is in print currently. So speaking to the printer yesterday, I was going to get a copy of one of the first books so I can make sure that everything is done properly. But we should, knock on some wood, fake wood in this case, that we should have that book in your hand in the next 2 or 3 weeks. One thing I didn't get a chance to tell you about last time, and so I want to make sure I do it this time to remember. We've been suffering some really bad rulings from the National Labor Relations Board, and along with that, rolling back a lot of their previous rulings. And so one of those that's out for comment right now, it hasn't been decided, but Purple Communications. So just in a real broad sense, Purple Communication was a ruling that more or less said that if your employer uses the company email to communicate to the employees, then the union should have that same right, both in organizing and communications with their potential or members. And so with that being out for comments, then they put out a request for what's called an amicus brief, which more or less is just a legal document supporting the decision-making process. So Local 304, as we do every chance we get, wrote an amicus brief in favor of keeping the rule the way it is, so that we could still maintain our use of electronic media to converse with the members. So a local or internet publication picked up that amicus brief and called and wanted to do an interview, and so David Galvin, our organizer, gave them a real good interview. It ended up being printed in a online magazine called Medium, and then the International also picked that up, and so they interviewed David, and they're going to put that in the electrical workers, and then looking at doing a video too. So I think that shows how active Local 304 tries to be in maintaining our footprint, and then also whatever we can do to help our brothers and sisters out there. You know, a harm to one is a harm to all. So kudos to David, and more to come. The other thing pretty devastating going on right now is the attack on apprenticeships. And so we've been active on our social media accounts trying to promote your involvement in letting the legislators know that we're not in favor of losing our apprenticeships in the trades. I believe that today is the last day, so if you get this video in time and haven't already done so, please check that out and get involved in making sure that our voices are heard. I know that we can be pretty comfortable where we're at and not think about how devastating it would be if we didn't have the ability to have apprenticeships where we train our next generation of workers. So thank you for anything you can do with that. Let's talk a little bit about Westar. Had our last open issues meeting yesterday and talked again about our safety impact bargaining that we were doing, and the company has more or less implemented. So I'm sure those of you at Westar have probably already heard this, but if you haven't, they haven't made a lot of decision on the generation side yet. This is really focused on power delivery and customer care at this point. But they're saying that on your FR clothing that you'll have a allotment, and so you'll go out on the Tyndale catalog and you'll know how much money you have. I'm sorry, allowance, not allotment. And you'll know how much money you have theoretically to spend on those clothes. This is not something that we negotiated. This is something that the company has implemented. Based on your voice, I've been saying no to any of these changes and just keep everything status quo, and we can talk about changes in our next negotiations. So the company does assure you that if you have spent your allowance and you have an issue with any of those clothes, that they will repair them. So you need to be very proactive in that case. Also on the safety toe boots, again, based on your voice, I have said no. How in the world would we ever know what the right amount is to give to our employees for boot allowance? Looking at the KCBL side, they do $170, and I just wasn't sure that outside of negotiations that was the right thing to do. So we have told them again, just like with the FR clothing, keep everything the way it is. So the new safety rule will require you to wear those clackers to have the safety toes, if you will. And then if you decide that you want to buy composite toe boots, you can voluntarily get the money from the company, that $170 that KCPL gets, in order to help offset the cost. Safety eyewear, we did sit down with the vendor, reviewed what they have. Again, it was not by our recommendation. The change for Westar is going to be that instead of getting a pair of glasses every 2 years, you'll get a pair every year, and they expanded the list of frames that are available. So you'll hear about more of that at the local workplace. Probably the biggest issue that we were made aware of yesterday is that the new safety rule is going to reflect a minimum of 2 men on a hot crew, and that's obviously, 2 journeymen, let me clarify that, because that's obviously a difference in our contract. Currently the contract reads that it'll be 3 men, including a non-working foreman, so that he can observe the crew that's working. So that's a big change, something that we're reviewing for what the next course of action is. The other, there was a couple other things that they presented to us yesterday along a different line in different investigation processes that they're putting in place. Again, trying to align these two companies and their policies when we obviously have separate contracts. So all these things are issues for us in how we bring together these two companies with obvious differences in our contracts, wages, working conditions, and even ability to bid a job across. So much more to come on that. Again, we meet every fourth Thursday of the month, and we just have to keep persevering until our next negotiations time. Along those same changes, we got the 401k stuff going on, and so we had a subcommittee meet here at the Union Hall so we could kind of help the company in developing what the frequently asked questions are going to be out there in the workplace. We do have a presentation here at the Union Hall by Brad Stevens with Principal Financial Group on September the 3rd. He'll be here at the hall at 5 o'clock. So if you have any questions specifically about 401ks, investments, and how to convert yours, the plans you have currently, into what Empower is going to offer, those would be great questions to ask him. There's still a lot of uncertainties. We won't find out more information until around the point of October, when we'll be able to start seeing that website. So The worst part about that is if you don't know, then you start filling in those unknowns. And I can tell you, go out and look at that webpage now, what you see there is not what we're going to get, because with Wolf Creek, KCPL, and West RO coming together, that makes about $1 billion worth of investments, and so they're giving us a special plan. So probably the most important thing that I learned out of it is there is a separation between the fiduciary responsibilities and the 401k record keeper. And so with SageView being the fiduciary, that means that they legally legislated have to make sure that they present you with plans that have the most opportunity for you to make money. So that's how they reviewed all of the different plans and came to the plans that they did and the record keeper in Empower. So please be interactive in those sessions as they come out and have those discussions, and please get all your questions answered. Like I said, we're developing a frequently asked question, and so I think you're going to see that out on circuit possibly as early as next week. Still dealing with Cigna. Yesterday I met with Teresa Dotson for a little bit in that open issues meeting, and we're still trying to develop some reports that show what we had and to what we currently have, and so we can hopefully work through some of those issues. So please keep this office informed, as I tell you on every one of these podcasts or YouTube videos, that we need to know what's going on. So Cigna issues at IBEW304.org. Obviously, we're not the fixer. You need to fix those through the HR one call, but we need to know what's going on so that we can categorize that. So don't stop with those emails, please. We got a few conferences coming up. We've got the CSR Summit coming up in October, going to be held down in El Paso, Texas. We have the Inter-Union Gas Conference going on in late September in Orlando, Florida, and next week is membership development. So anybody interested in attending conferences, definitely need to keep the office informed of that. We really like to get some diverse representation out there. There's also a couple fun events coming up too. We've got a clay shoot up at Powder Creek September 21st, and so anybody interested in attending that, the e-board last night approved up to 10 shooters to attend that. So if you like shooting shotguns at clay targets, well, you might inform us, and we can hopefully hook you up with something. A couple more plugs real quick. September the 14th is the AFL-CIO second annual golf tournament held here in Topeka. So it's please contact the office. I can get you some applications for teams. It's a really fun event, and the proceeds go to some very worthy causes. The percentage of it will go to the Kansas Boys and Girls Club, and then another percentage of that goes back to the Central Labor Councils in order to present that to their United Way. And that's the last thing I want to bring to you again is, our United Way drives are getting ready to open up, and so please be active in those. United Way is one of the organizations that really has been a partner of labor now for 75 years. That's the organization that finds help for our union members whenever they're laid off or on strike or have a family issue. Great resources there that we can use, and so that's very, very important that we help contribute to those things. So Local 304, have a great weekend. The weather's getting better, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks.